Well, viewers, the top story today. Infosys co-founder Narayana Murthy is back in the news, and yet again for a statement that has sparked off some sort of a debate. And this time, he hasn't really proposed longer working hours, and instead he's gone ahead and spoken about the freebie culture. And freebie culture, of course, is something that has been spoken about through this entire election season, mind you. During a chat at the Bengaluru Tech Summit, Murthy spoke about the free guarantee of the government and said that people shouldn't be given free subsidies like electricity or anything else without having to actually contribute something in return. Let's listen.
While I am not against free services being provided, I fully understand. I also came from a poor background once upon a time. But I think we should expect something in return from those people who receive those free subsidies.
Now, the comment hit home with the focus straight on the Siddaramaiah-led Karnataka government that won the recent assembly elections on a slew of freebies packaged as 5 poll guarantees. Now, State Minister Priyank Kharge, who was also at the event, played down the statement. He suggests that Murthy merely said that citizens should be responsible when given incentives by the government. Let's listen to what he said.
ಅವ್ರೇನು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಅಂದರೆ ಫ್ರೀಬೀಸ್ ಅವ್ರೇನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಸರ್ವಿಸಿಗೆ ನೀವೇನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ಅದರ ಜೊತೆ ನಾಗರಿಕರ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಕೂಡ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು. ನೀವು ಹೆಂಗೆ ನೀವು ಸಿಟಿಸನ್ಸ್ ರೈಟ್ಸನ್ನು ಅಂತ ನೀವು ಕ್ಲೇಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ, ಸಿಟಿಸನ್ಸ್ ಡ್ಯೂಟೀಸ್ ಆಗು ಕೂಡ ಕೆಲವುದು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು. ಸೊ ಅವ್ರದ ಅರ್ಥ ಏನಂದರೆ, ನಾವು ಏನು ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಯೋಜನೆಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಒಂದು ಇನ್ಸೆಂಟಿವ್ಸು. ಈಗ ಯಾಕೆ ನಾವು ಮಿಡ್ ಡೇ ಮೀಲ್ ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು ಹೇಳಿ? ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಶಾಲೆಗೆ ಬಿಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಶಾಲೆಗೆ ವಾಪಸ್ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ ಮಿಡ್ ಡೇ ಮೀಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋದು. ಯಾಕೆ ಅದ್ರದ್ದು ಲಾಭ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ? ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಶಾಲೆ ಸೇರಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಜನರು 10ನೇ ತರಗತಿ ಪಾಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ ಮಟ್ಟದಲ್ಲಿ. ಯಾಕೆ ನಾವು ಸ್ಕಾಲರ್ಶಿಪ್ ಕೊಡೋದು?
Well, meanwhile, the BJP, of course, continued its verbal tirade against the freebies and said that the Prime Minister recently refused to encourage it and the Revadi culture will come to an end soon, is what they claim.
देखिए, देश और राज्य को चलाने के लिए फंड की आवश्यकता पड़ती है और फंड अवेलेबल होना चाहिए सर्वांगीण विकास के लिए। सड़कों का निर्माण होना चाहिए, कॉलेजों का निर्माण होना चाहिए, हॉस्पिटलों का निर्माण होना चाहिए। जिस प्रकार से रेवड़ी सिस्टम जो चलाया है सभी को, जैसे आम पार्टी ने पंजाब के अंदर सभी को 1000 रुपए देंगे, इसका मतलब यह है कि आप नैतिक मूल्यों को अलग रखकर आप वो काम कर रहे हैं जो समाज उसको स्वीकार नहीं करता। आप खजाने को लुटाने का काम करते हैं। और अभी एक देश का नाम नहीं लेना चाहूंगा, उस देश ने तो बल्कि वहां अपने प्रधानमंत्री को चुना ही इसलिए है कि उसने कहा कि मैं कुछ भी फ्री नहीं दूंगा, जो भी दूंगा पैसे लेके दूंगा, फ्री के सारे सिस्टम खत्म करूंगा। इसी प्रकार से मुझे लगता है हमारे देश में ये रेवड़ी बांटने वाले लोग एक दिन इनका अंत आने वाला है।
Well, next we went and spoke to some of his industry colleagues. Let's listen to what their opinion was on Mr. Narayana Murthy's comment.
India is truly a country on the move, and I think we are developing our infrastructure, various industries, including manufacturing and services, at a very rapid pace. To make sure that we are able to accelerate this, I think it's imperative that we have to work 24 hours, not an individual, but institutions or organizations. And it's important, like we did in the IT and the business process management industries, to make sure that the environment is conducive for 24-hour working. So if that means more appropriate shift timings, if that means that you provide the kind of incentives and the safety for all employees to work in whatever shift, I think it's an imperative. But I totally agree with Mr. Murthy that it's important that we work harder as an industry and we're able to build the nation that we're all so proud of.
Well, let's open this up. We have GS Prashant, the spokesperson from the BJP, Adv Nikhil Jain, political analyst. Badri Narayan is going to be joining us. He's a fellow at Niti Aayog and also an economist. We also have Mr. DS Rajashekar, who's the president of Bengaluru Praja Vedike. Thank you all for joining us today. Let me open this up with Mr. Nikhil Jain. Nikhil, this is a very interesting situation. Definitely puts the government in a spot of bother. Not just because you were riding high, or rather the Congress was riding high on the poll promises and the guarantees rather during the elections here in Karnataka, but also they've taken that pitch to neighboring states of Telangana, and most of the elections this time at the 5 states have been about the promises. While the BJP slams the promises, the Congress says this is something that's going to benefit the people. But somebody of the stature of Mr. Narayana Murthy, when he makes a comment like this, there's definitely some thinking to do.
First of all, Deepak, I think the difference between the Congress and the BJP when it comes to social welfare schemes or freebies or Revadis, whatever you might call, is the question of hypocrisy. The Congress says that these are social welfare schemes, promises them, provides them, and holds its ground on what its view on these schemes is. So far as the BJP is concerned, it promises the very same schemes. Madhya Pradesh, BJP, it is being said that the BJP has a strong leg in this election. Why do they have a strong leg? Because the Ladli Behna scheme. Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, in all the different places that the BJP has contested elections, it has been promising the very same social welfare schemes or freebies. The difference is, wo kare to social welfare or labharti, or koi kare to it is Revadi. I don't understand how do you go about with this level of hypocrisy in politics, but that is what the BJP has been doing. So if indeed we are to take Mr. Murthy's comments, that are not to apply to only the guarantees and the welfare schemes being provided by the Congress party, it is also to be extended to the welfare schemes being promised by the BJP. Secondly, I feel so far as Mr. Murthy's statements are concerned, he may be a very good industrialist, he may be a tech mogul, but he is not an economist. And I'm sorry, but I think his view of things can sometimes be very oversimplified. Just a few days ago, he had made a statement that people should be working 70 hours a week. On the other hand, we have Bill Gates, who is talking about contemplating 4-day work weeks, and on one hand we have Mr. Murthy, who wants people to work for 70 hours. This is the same, he's heading the same company where the starting base package for tech employees has pretty much been the same the past 10 years despite the inflation and overall growth of the country. And when he's talking about these freebies being given to people and people should respond in that and 20% should be the enrollment rate, you can't have your
Interesting that you say this. Now you draw a parallel between Narayana Murthy and Mr. Bill Gates. And very interesting that because a statement now has come in that puts the Congress in a spot of bother. There are, of course, these sort of varied statements that come in about Mr. Murthy, how he's treating his employees, and so on and so forth. You did speak about the fact that he is not an economist. So I have an economist on the panel precisely for that reason. Mr. Badri Narayan is with us. He, of course, is a fellow at Niti Aayog, like I introduced earlier. Mr. Badri Narayan, thank you for joining us. Now, as an economist, when you view a statement like this, give us perspective from two angles. Firstly, what's the impact of giving freebies at the rate that probably, let's take an example of Karnataka here, because, there are 5 main guarantees that many have been speaking about how it could drain the exchequer. And then if you consider a statement coming in from somebody of the weightage of Mr. Narayana Murthy, if you could link these two and give us a perspective from how it would affect the economy overall.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here. Sorry for being late. On this point, I would like to talk from a very, economist perspective. I'm not getting into the political part of the debate. Whenever you talk about freebies, there are two issues that are involved here. One is how they affect the fiscal part of the budget aspect, the state finances and so on that you are talking about here. And the second is what happens to the beneficiary, the people at large. What does it do to them? Does it incentivize them to spend more and so on? So here, I think generally, the subsidy should be relatively, distributed in an efficient way, so that you take into account these two trade-offs. Like one is the fiscal part of the budget aspect, and the second is this the economic impact of the subsidies. Like how is it going to boost consumption? How is it going to boost the investment and other things, and also reduce inequality, provide welfare opportunities like education, health, and other aspects. So from this aspect, we cannot put all the freebies in under one whole bucket. Coming to the statement by Mr. Narayana Murthy, I think what I take it as an economist in terms of interpretation is that the freebie should be distributed in a way that it is efficiently done and it is used for the purposes, the broader economic prosperity of the country. And if that happens, then it is a efficient subsidy that is helping. If that doesn't happen, it's going to affect the exchequer. So that is what I think of it as an economist. So what I would say is I partly agree and partly disagree. So freebies have instead of using that term, I would use the term subsidies. So subsidies have their own purpose, and they also can be, if they're not thought through properly, they are done in a very haphazard way. Then they can be, that can really distort the economy. But if they're done properly, in an efficient way, in a way that meets all the objectives that I talked about before, then they can be good. So I don't think we can put all the subsidies under one bucket.
Okay.
We have to be very careful and do the proper analysis.
Okay, I have a few questions to add to that, but I'll come back to you. We have a couple of analysts, of course, who've been waiting. Mr. Prashant from the BJP, of course, right now would be pretty happy with what Mr. Narayana Murthy has said, because they have been against Revadi culture. That they have, of course, been saying that it is Revadi culture. They've been against the guarantees. They're saying that it will sink the state. The Congress believes otherwise. Mr. Prashant, what do you make of this statement?
See, Deepak, firstly, we have to understand the fundamental difference between empowering citizens and trying to use this freebies as an election gimmick. Because what the Narendra Modi government has done at the center by extending the free ration scheme for 80 crore people till 2028 is most of our people who are poor, it may be urban poor or really the people in the rural areas who are poor, will get the free ration. It is not a way to incentivize them for anything, but to ensure that they have a dignified living and have 2 square meals a day, if not 3 or 4. So therefore, that is keeping in mind the welfare measures that we have to give it to the people. But whereas what Congress does on the other hand, in all the states that it wants to come to power or where it is in power, it promises freebies without even analyzing the financial situation that it will have and the financial ramifications, and it announces freebies for election gimmicks. What happened the other day in Telangana? Election Commission had to come down heavily on Karnataka government here, saying that you're advertising your schemes in Telangana and it's violation of model code of conduct. So therefore, what Congress has been traditionally doing is only.
But what's wrong, Mr. Prashant? What's wrong when the Congress points out that there is hypocrisy on the side of the BJP as far as freebie culture is concerned? Because you take, for example, Karnataka, you take, for example, Madhya Pradesh or any other state, the Congress comes out, makes announcement when the BJP feels jittery, well, it could work electorally. You come out in your manifesto and make multiple announcements which are very similar to what the Congress had made. So, the Congress is going to call it hypocrisy.
Deepak, look at it. No, look at it this way. When we are running a government, we know the drain on the finances and how to measure it. Whereas what Congress is doing, they're sitting in opposition, making tall claims, hoping that they won't come to power. And sometimes they do come to power. And now it is draining the state finances. What is happening in Karnataka? Exactly the same thing. You don't have money even to pay salaries. Even the BMTC buses, you have yourself reported on your channel, were stopped in some areas due to lack of diesel. That is the plight. And the Karnataka Rajyotsava awards which were given, checks as small as 3,000 to 5,000 bounced because of lack of funds in the government. So Karnataka government is staring at paucity of funds because they have not planned it out at all. They promised probably more than the moon and they're not even able to reach a quarter of it. Therefore,
I don't want to get too political on this debate because this is not a debate overall on just the issue of freebies. It is more to do with the idea that Mr. Narayana Murthy was trying to speak out. I want to delve into that aspect, that when you do give these subsidies or freebies, can something be expected from the citizens in return? DS Rajashekar is with us. He's the president of Bengaluru Praja Vedike. Mr. Rajashekar, what's your opinion on what Mr. Narayana Murthy had to say?
Yeah, good evening, Deepak and all the others. Being from the civic activism group, I look at this freebies as mostly the election season. These freebies come out from all parties. So no party is aware that they are not promising the freebies or any other things. But at the outset, I agree to disagree Mr. Narayana Murthy's statement for the very reason is that, see, first, let any government or whatever party it is, let them set up the infrastructure so that these freebies are given in the right way to the last benefactor who the deprived are waiting for. Point number one. Point number two, I look at it, yes, if I am agreeing to it. Yes, whoever takes this benefit, they should be accountable to the society they are living in. That is when, because otherwise, if they are going to be lethargic because of these freebies, and if we are not going to get workmen, labor force to do things, then it is going to really be troublesome for the industries to grow. So I only say that if government can put up the infrastructures, industries, rightly do what they have to do, they don't need to give these freebies. We can live without these freebies also. But at the outset, yeah, we need freebies because there are some deprived people of the society who depend upon these kind of things. But then they also should be accountable so that they can be justified of taking this beneficial.
Yeah, that's again coming down to the point of what Mr. Murthy was saying. How do you make this accountable? Mr. Nikhil Jain, I want to come back to you. Interestingly here, Mr. Priyank Kharge made a point that, we brought in the midday meal scheme because we wanted more admissions in schools and colleges, and it's worked brilliantly. But what Mr. Murthy pointed out, giving people 200 units of free electricity. Now, what are they contributing in return to this? Because the rationale being drawn here, that has a direct benefit of admissions in schools. What are the advantages here? Secondly, you're giving women 2,000 rupees, as a bonus of sorts where they could probably use it any way they like. You have the free buses for women across the state, and some people say that it is probably being misused as well. So how does all of this justify or fall in line with what Mr. Murthy has said?
Yeah, Deepak, can I interfere here in regard to power? I would just want to answer.
So Deepak, since you wanted to keep the debate non-political.
I just want to remind you that I've just been told by my producer that we have only about a couple of minutes, so let's keep these answers quick.
Yeah, so I would just talk on the free power which they
Go
give.
ahead.
See, it encourages people who don't have electricity. Their children can study. They can do better. And they can do small cottage kind of works in the houses where there are people who don't have employment. So I would directly rate this power freebie to this.
Okay. Very quickly, Mr. Badri Narayan, I have just about 30 to 40 seconds to go. One aspect that he spoke about is having people to do something in return. And time and again, many of the Congress leaders in particular, I know you don't want to talk politics here, they've been saying that giving this money to people now, free buses, them going to temples, it overall generates a lot of income to different businesses, helps boost the economy. Do you agree with that?
No, I think when we say the way I interpret Mr. Murthy's point is that the giving back is not directly from the people. It is based on for example, the power example that the previous speaker gave. When you have power, you're going to indulge in some activities that is going to result in economic activity and add to the kitty. Those kind of things. But then many of the subsidies actually may not do that. For example, if you take the farmer subsidies that for the fertilizer subsidies and so on, many times the recipients are actually rich farmers, not the poor farmers. So that's what I'm talking about. That's what I mentioned earlier also.
Absolutely, and that's a big point that you mentioned, because even in Karnataka, when you see the people who are availing these schemes, many of them who even have the BPL cards probably have it from ages ago, and the financial situation at their homes have improved. But of course, we should take these statements and look into it. There are different versions of how we could probably interpret it, but one thing that people should note, that after these Lok Sabha elections, how the economy in Karnataka performs and how we can link it to the 5 guarantees will probably give us a broader picture on how the freebies have actually worked. I thank all our panelists for joining us today. We have a Mirror Now special broadcast coming up on the other side. That's it from me. Stay with Mirror Now.